Hey y'all, Enzo here from Knox Knife Mods with you today, and we got a treat for you. I'm really excited about this episode. We are going to be getting into a vintage knife, a beautiful vintage knife. This belongs to a friend of mine. He asked me to just clean it up for him a little bit, restore the edge, and give it a little bit of an oiling. To be honest with you, I'm gonna fix the edge. I'm gonna put a new sharp edge on it, but I'm really not gonna do a whole lot of cleaning because this thing is just it's beautiful in its age and in its patina. So really excited to show that to you guys. It is inside this pouch. I'm not gonna say anything else. If you've seen the thumbnail, you already know what's up. So yeah, it's gonna be good. But before we get into that, got to do a pocket check. In the glass as well tonight, it is High West Rendezvous, a gift from Wolfman Walsh. Want to give him a big thank you for this because I've been going through some hard stuff, and he was kind enough to, he was thinking of me, and he knows how much I love Rendezvous. It's my favorite whiskey. Favorite blend, I should say. Yeah, so enjoying that tonight. But as for me, I need to do a pocket check. Sorry for the dangling earbuds here, but it's the best way to record. These microphones from Apple are like phenomenal. So my main blade today is the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. Wonderful knife from Giant Mouse. I love the design. It's a Vox Nest design. The steel is Elmax, and the handle material is micarta. This really nice crosscut micarta from I think it's from the Lion Steel factory, but they do an excellent job over there in Italy. Really great attention to detail and fit and finish and all that fun stuff. Crown spine as well. Super nice. Secondary blade today is the Case limited run Trapper in red, white, and blue swirl G10. I really love this thing. I got it Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and it's just neat because it has an unmarked houndstooth shield. It did say pilot test run on there, but I don't really buy knives as investments, and if it has a marking like that that's kind of big and obnoxious, I'm going to get rid of it. So I use flits to get rid of that. Main clip point, of course, the classic Trapper pattern, and the secondary blade is a Spey. So yeah, beautiful knife. I did do a satin hand rub on the bolsters and on the blades. So yeah, really pleased with that one. And lastly, the back pocket carry is a Case modern back pocket. This is an S35 VN steel and buffalo horn. So of course, buffalo horn is not necessarily modern, but the steel is modern, and the what would you call that? I guess we'd call that a nail nick hole. I'm not sure, but the hole is a modern touch. I do prefer just a standard nail nick, but this hole has really grown on me because what it does is if you want to open the knife left-handed, it allows you to do that really easily. So it's kind of useful that way. I like it. But yeah, it's a really great knife. Beautiful handle material, that buffalo horn. It is gorgeous. So guys, we're going to get into this thing. Very excited. We're going to go to tabletop. We're going to open this thing up, talk about it. I think y'all are going to love it, especially if you're into the traditional stuff, if you're into the vintage stuff, the grandfather of folding knives. If you're into that, you're going to enjoy this. Okay guys, let's go to tabletop. We'll talk about the knife a little bit. Then we'll go into the workshop. We'll do a little bit of sharpening, just a little bit of oil, and that's really about it. So let's dive in. All right, y'all, here we go. Oh my goodness, look at this. You already know what's in here now. I mean, come on. There it is. Look at this. So the button is unclasped because while I am in possession of this, it's in great shape. It works wonderfully. But I just taking extra care, I'm just gonna leave that unclasped, and I will let Jake use it to his heart's content when it's back in his possession. But while I'm taking care of it, I don't want to risk, hurting anything. However, this sheath is in excellent condition for being 50 years old. My God. So quite a wonderful piece of knife manufacture here that Jake's inherited. So here it is. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is wild. I love seeing old knives, vintage knives in people's collections. Nothing makes me happier than this. So obviously we have a Buck 110 here, a very, very early Buck 110. It was given to Jake's grandfather in 1975, but we have dated it between 1972 and 1974. We'll get to how we arrived at that date here in just a minute, but first I kind of wanted to give you guys a once over here. So very beautiful knife. Let's listen to the action. 50 years old, and listen to that snap. Unbelievable. I mean, it's excellent. It's excellent. And the closing is like clockwork. I couldn't believe it. So when Jake reached out to me, he had sent me a text, and he said, hey man, I inherited this knife from my grandfather. I was wondering if you could take a look at it, clean it up for me. And he didn't send me a photo or anything. So I said, oh, I'd love to. And I assumed, okay, we're probably talking about an old case or an old trade or something like that. And it's probably pretty gunked up, so I'll need to, kind of clean it up at the back springs and at the slip joints and, But no. He sends me a photo, and it was from here. So no tang stamp. So I was thinking, okay, wow, it could be a classic Buck 110. That would be really cool. And then he sends me a second photo, and I see the tang stamp, and I was just like, oh, yes. And I told him immediately, dude, that's a Buck 110, and it looks very vintage, and that's just so exciting. That's just such a cool knife to have as an heirloom. So, as we can see here, I mean, this is fully the classic one. It's ebony wood handle covers, brass bolsters, and the classic Buck clip point blade here. How did we arrive at the date that we did? Let's get to that. So this would have been the third variation of the fifth version of the Buck 110, as I said, produced between 1972 and 1974. What allowed us to get to that date is a few things. First up, we'll talk about the tang stamp, because as most knife folks know, if you're trying to date an old knife, tang stamp's usually one of the first places you want to look. This is the 3-line normal tang stamp. So originally, there was one line that simply said Buck. On the first generation, there was one line that said Buck, kind of parallel with the spine. And then eventually it came down here to the tang, and then they added a second line that said 110, and then a third line that said USA. And by then we've arrived in the 70s. But there's a few other things we have to take into consideration, one of which is the number of brass pins in the handle covers. We're not counting the stainless steel rocker pin, although that does factor, because at some points they use brass for the rocker pins and then they switch to stainless steel. So that's another factor, the stainless steel rocker pin. But when you're counting the handle pins in that language, we're talking about the 2 brass pins. So that number has changed a lot. It's gone from 2 to 4 to 3, and it's jumped around. So having 2 pins helps identify the year as well. 2 pins on both sides. Another factor is the number of rivets in the brass bolsters. In our front bolster, we have 1 rivet. In the rear bolster, we have 2, and this pattern is repeated on the other side of the blade. Some versions will have a different number of rivets on each side of the blade. This one has the same number, which helps us get a more specific date. So 1 here and 2 here. With patina and age, these rivets are going to appear a little bit more readily. However, if you have a factory fresh 110, they're not going to be that obvious. They're going to be pretty well hidden. So useful information there. Another factor is when we look at the butt here, the appearance of the spring, or I guess you'd say the spring holder, the section of steel that holds our locking spring, which, let me see if I can show y'all, which, by the way, there's some little factors there as well. The locking spring here is a round spring. I think y'all can see that. Let me dial my light down a bit. There we go. Do you see how that spring down there is rounded? It's like a cylinder. There's another version of the spring that is square. So this is the more common round version. Not sure what caused them to use square versions. A lot of people think that it may have been involved in repairs sent into the factory. But anyways, this is the classic round one. And the appearance of the spring holder here being high polish, stainless steel, between the 2 brass bolsters here, again, helps identify the date. And let's see, is there anything else I left out? I think that covers all of it. So, what we know about Buck 110s manufactured during that period, they would have been made at the North Magnolia Avenue factory in El Cajon, California. So absolutely just the very classic era of the Buck 110. Handle covers are Massachar ebony, imported from Indonesia. Now, when he initially sent me the photos, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I saw this side and I thought, well, maybe it's not ebony, maybe it's a different wood. But the more I thought about it, it has to be ebony, because look at this side. Obviously, this side's very rich and very dark, as you would expect. And the thing is, you imagine somebody using this knife for 50 years, there's going to be some weathering on the wood. I mean, it's going to be natural. So this side is lightened up a bit, still very pretty. So one thing that Jake had requested was if we can, first off was sharpening it. We need to sharpen it, see if we can remove the rust spots. And then I suggested, well, if you want, I can try to just oil that wood very lightly and just see if we can bring some of the richness back. So beyond that, we're not doing anything, and we're certainly not doing anything destructive, because this thing is just absolutely beautiful and needs to be preserved. What I'm going to do, we're going to sharpen it. As I said, after we're done sharpening, we're going to tape off the bolsters, and then I'm going to spray a light coating of WD-40 over the blade just to see if we can get rid of those rust spots. And even if it doesn't, we're not going to go any farther than that, because number one, these rust spots really aren't that bad, and number two, I just wouldn't want to risk doing anything to destroy this blade. It's been held up wonderfully, so we're going to take care of it. So another thing that we haven't really talked about is that his name it appears to have been hand-stamped, his grandfather's name, I should say, hand-stamped into the bolsters, as well as the location where I'm assuming this knife was given to him. So Jake's grandfather was a truck driver. He worked in Alaska on occasion, and I'm assuming, that's about all we know, so I'm assuming it was given to him as a gift while he was in Alaska in the year of 1975. So it just oozes cool, and it oozes character, and just the history and the story is just so cool to me. And bucks like this, they just blow modern bucks out of the water, modern 110s. And speaking of which, I will show y'all here as soon as I can get it out. Here we go. Here's my 110. This is obviously a very modern 110, the 110 LT, which comes with just god-awful plastic handles. So I took mine and jigged them, and then I dyed them black. I added a lanyard. Blade steel here, though, is pretty nice. It's CPM 154 and a beautiful stone wash. I did add a sharpening choil there, and a quick stud, and also a pocket clip. So it's decidedly modern, but man, a 110 like this just blows it out of the water. I mean, this is just so much better. And just oh man, I love that. It's just so dialed in. It's so dialed in. There's like no blade wobble, certainly no vertical play. It's perfect. 50 years old, maybe a little more. Like, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And it really is a testament to how well built the Buck 110 was. So I know there's folks on YouTube, some folks that I really like on YouTube, who kind of make fun of waxing poetic about the Buck 110, but it's earned it. It's earned it. I'm sorry. Like, it has absolutely earned it. So anyway, guys, we're going to take it to the workshop now, put a nice new edge on here. We'll see if I can do a mirror edge. By the way, the blade steel on this one, this predates the 420HC, the Paul Bose heat-treated 420HC. So we got 440C. How about that, man? That is really cool. And 440C is a great steel to work with, so I'm confident we can get a nice edge on there. Time-tested, proven steel. Now, granted, some folks are gonna, and including me, obviously I prefer modern super steel, but 440C is time-tested and proven, and it's easy to maintain. It's easy to sharpen, and it's stainless. So the fact that this is all the corrosion you have after 50 years is really wild. So in any case, let's get to the workshop. Let's sharpen it up. Let's put a nice little slight coat of WD-40 on there, see if we can get rid of that rust, and let's oil up the handles a little bit and see if we can bring back some of that ebony richness. All right, guys, let's get to it. Hey y'all, in the kitchen now. Unfortunately, the WD-40 did not get that rust off. I have one more idea I want to try that again is non-destructive, and that is a mixture of baking soda and water. I've done this before to remove rust from a blade, and I know it works. My main thing is that, you know, most of these solutions they tend to require scrubbing, and I don't want to scrub. You know, I mean, the knife edges, or not the edge, the blade is beat up from use. But I don't want to cover up that use because it's an heirloom knife. So let's try this, and I'm just going to dab this on. We'll use a microfiber cloth to then wipe it off after it's kind of set there for a little bit and settled on the blade. And again, just trying to avoid, what am I trying to say? Trying to avoid, using like a scrub pad or something that's really abrasive. I don't want to do that. So, this is abrasive on a minute level, but it's not the same as coming at it with a dedicated scrub pad. So we're gonna let this sit for a minute, and then we'll go at it with a microfiber cloth and see if that gets off some of that rust. All right, y'all. Let's see how this thing finished off. Now, I apologize, by the way, for the audio because I'm shooting in my office at the moment, and I left my headset at home, so kind of working with what I got here. Hope you guys like the leather background as well. It's some leather I'm working with right now. Anyway, let's get to the matter at hand. Look at that. Just beautiful. It has been a pleasure working on this knife, and I want to thank my buddy Jake for trusting me to freshen it up for him. I've really enjoyed my time with this blade here. So what all did we do? Well, we put a mineral oil coating on the ebony wood covers here, and I think that really brought back some of that dark richness that you associate with ebony. I think it looks really good. We also added a quick stud, as you can see, and before any purists get mad at me about that, listen, the quick studs are very convenient, and Jake wanted one by request because they're convenient. You can open the knife one-handed now. And the big deal to me about quick studs is that they're non-destructive. Basically, you have a little channel in here that mounts to the blade spine. There's a set screw right here that tightens against the blade, and it's got a very kind of rounded end on it, so it's not biting into the blade at all. So when you go to remove it, it removes cleanly, and it's not a huge deal. I also oiled the blade path here to make sure that it's going to open smoothly with that quick stud. So it's a very nice action. Really enjoy opening and closing this thing now. I already did to begin with, and now it's even better. The other thing is we used a a baking soda paste here to get rid of the rust on the blade. Most of it came off. There's a couple little spots left, but for the most part, all the big spots have wiped off pretty cleanly, and it worked a lot better than the WD-40, so that's probably going to be my go-to going forward here. Also put a mirrored edge on there, which came out very nice, I think. One thing that I didn't notice as much when I first opened the knife is that it had a very dull edge that had been ground pretty far up the blade, showing that his granddad really used the heck out of this thing, which is awesome, and it's part of the story. But bringing a sharp edge back to an edge that has been run that far up the blade takes some time, and typically I find the best way to deal with that is to broaden the edge because otherwise, if you're trying to put a 15 or 20 degree edge on a knife that has seen, you know, some age and use, that bevel's going to run pretty high up and it might end up looking kind of ridiculous. So I put a broader edge on it. I think it looks really nice. It's not going to be your crazy, you know, lightsaber, but it is going to be a working edge for a good long time with that 440C steel. All right, so if y'all want to see just how mirrored it is, I'm going to see if I can get a good angle here and y'all can see that text. Yeah, there you go. So pretty doggone mirrory there. Looks really nice. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that mirror finish there. I think it looks pretty darn good. Out in the sunlight too, it looks especially good. Under these studio lights, it's not always the best. This bright and harsh lighting, it's not always the best angle to show y'all what that edge looks like. Anyways, yeah, it's been a blast working with this thing. I'm excited for Jake to get it back. I hope he enjoys it, and I hope it has a kind of a place of pride for him as an heirloom knife that he can pass down, you know, to his kids, and then they can pass it down further. It's really cool, and plus it's really neat to see a 440C Buck 110. I've never handled one of those. I've only handled the 420HC versions as well as the modern versions, but yeah, excellent knife and an excellent experience. All right, guys. Well, I've been Enzo. This has been Knox Knife Mods. This has been Jake's granddad's Buck 110. It's been just a blast working on this blade. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave any comments or questions or anything like that down below. I'll be happy to answer them. And yeah, if he ever decides to take that set screw off, I'm going to be happy to do it for him. But that's the beauty of these things. You know, you have the option. You can put it on, you can take it off. It's not going to hurt anything. So I'm curious to see. I want to have him on the podcast, and as he handles and experiences this after a little while, I want to get his feedback. But anyway, guys, sorry, I'm rambling now. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, y'all be well. Peace.